Kames was the last pharaoh of the Theban 17th dynasty. He was possibly the son of Queennefertitidocumentary and Ahotep I and the brother of Ahmose, founder of the 18th dynasty. His reign fell at the very end of the second intermediate period. Kames is usually ascribed a reign of 3 years, his highest attested regnal year, although some scholars now favor giving him a longer reign of approximately 5 years. Pharaonic, 1555 to 1550 BC. Predecessor Sekerta, successor Hos I, consort Ahotu. Children Amosit Kames, father second Tau, mother Ahotep I, died 1550 BC dy and Asty. 17th dynasty. His reign is important for the decisive military initiatives he took against the Hyksos, who had come to rule much of ancient Egypt. His father had begun the initiatives and lost his life in battle with the Hyksos. It is thought that his mother, as regent, continued the campaigns after the death of Kames, and that his full brother made the final conquest of them and united all of Egypt. Him, that I may rip open his belly. My wish is to save Egypt and to smite the Asiatic. There is no evidence to support Pierre Montet's assertion that Kames's move against the Hyksos was sponsored by the priesthood of Amun as an attack against the Seth worshippers in the north, i.e., a religious motive for the War of Liberation. The Carnarvon tablet does state that Kames went north to attack the Hyksos by the command of Amun. But this is common to virtually all royal inscriptions of Egyptian history, and should not be understood as the specific command from this deity. Citation needed. Kames states his reasons for an attack on the Hyksos was nationalistic pride. Northern campaign. In Kames's third year, he embarked on his military campaign against the Hyksos. By sailing north out of Thebes on the Nile, he first reached Nefertiti, which was just north of Qusay and was manned by an Egyptian garrison loyal to the Hyksos. A detachment of Medjay troops attacked the garrison and overran it. The Carnarvon tablet recounted this much of the campaign, but breaks off there. Nonetheless, Kames's military strategy probably can be inferred. As Kames moved north, he could easily take small villages and wipe out small Hyksos garrisons, but if a city resisted, he could cut it off from the rest of the Hyksos kingdom simply by taking over the city directly to the north. This kind of tactic probably allowed him to travel very quickly up the Nile. The second stele of Kames found in Thebes continues Kames's narrative with an attack on Avaris. Because it does not mention Memphis or other major cities to the north, it has long been suspected that Kames never did attack Avaris, but instead recorded what he intended to do. Kim Ryholt recently has argued that Kames probably never advanced farther than the Empu, or Sinopolis Nome in Middle Egypt, by which time the mummy, which had been left with the pile of debris on which it was found, was almost certainly long lost. Kames erected two stelae in Thebes that seem to tell a consecutive narrative of his defeat of the Hyksos, on the Fayum and the city of Saka, and did not enter either the Nile Delta nor Lower Egypt proper. First Nubian campaign. Kames is known to have campaigned against the Kushites prior to his third year, since the Hyksos king directly appeals to his Kushite counterpart to attack his Theban rival and avenge the damage which Kames had inflicted upon both their states. It is unlikely that Kames had the resources to simultaneously defeat the Kushites to the south and then inflict a serious setback on the Hyksos to the north in just 1 year over a front line that extended over several hundred kilometers. His year 3 is the only attested date for Kames and was once thought to signal the end of his reign. However, it now appears certain that Kames reigned for 1 or 2 more years beyond this date, because he initiated a second campaign against the Nubians. Evidence that Kames had started a first campaign against the Kushites is affirmed by the contents of Apophis' captured letter, where the Hyksos king's plea for aid from the king of Kush is recounted. In Kames's year 3 second stela, do you see what Egypt has done to me? The ruler who is in it, Kames the brave, given life, is attacking me on my soil, although I have not attacked him in the manner of all he has done against you. He is choosing these 2 lands to bring affliction upon them, my land and yours, and he has ravaged them. 2 separate rock inscriptions found at Armina and Tosca, deep in Nubia, give the prenomen and nomen of Kames and Ahmose side by side, and were inscribed at the same time, likely by the same draftsman according to the epigraphic data. In both inscriptions the names of Ahmose follow directly below those of Kames, and each king is give. In the epithet Danc, given life, which was normally used only of ruling kings, This indicates that both Kamos and Ahmose were ruling when the inscriptions were cut, and consequently that they were co-regents, since Kamosi's name was recorded first. He would have been the senior co-regent. However, no mention or reference to Ahmose as king appears in Kamosi's Year 3 stela, which indirectly records Kamosi's first campaign against the Nubians. This can only mean that Kamos appointed the young Ahmose as his junior co-regent sometime after his 3rd year, prior to launching a second military campaign against the Nubia and Estat. As a result, Kamosi's second Nubian campaign must have occurred in his year 4 or 5. The target of Kamosi's second Nubian campaign may have been the fortress at Buin, which the Nubians had recaptured from Kamosi's forces, since a stela bearing his cartouche was deliberately erased, and there is fire damage in the fort itself. A slightly longer reign of 5 years for Kamos has now been estimated by Ryholt and this ruler's timeline has been dated from 1554 BC to 1549 BC to take into account a 1-year period of co-regency between Ahmose and Kamos. Donald Redford notes that Kamos was buried very modestly in an ungilded stock coffin which lacked even a royal uraeus. This may imply that the king died before he had enough time to complete his burial equipment, presumably because he was engaged in warfare with his Kushite and Hyksos neighbors. The mummy of Kamos is mentioned in the Abbot Papyrus, which records an investigation into tomb robberies during the reign of Ramesses IX, about 400 years after Ahmose's interment. While his tomb was mentioned as being in a good state, it is clear that his mummy was moved at some point afterward, as it was discovered in 1857 at Dra Abu el-Naga, seemingly deliberately hidden in a pile of debris. The painted and stuccoed coffin was uncovered by early Egyptologists Auguste Mariette and Heinrich Brugsch, who noted that the mummy was in very poor shape. Buried with the mummy was a gold and silver dagger, amulets, a scarab, a bronze mirror, and a pectoral in the shape of a cartouche bearing the name of his successor and brother, Ahmose. The coffin remains in Egypt, while the dagger is in Brussels, and the pectoral and mirror are in the Louvre, Paris. The name of the pharaoh inscribed on the coffin was only recognized 50 years after the original discovery. The first stele is missing its last part. The Carnarvon tablet also preserves some of the text of the stele. Identification as early as 1916. Sir Alan Gardner assumed that the first Carnarvon tablet must be a copy of some commemorative stela of Pharaoh Kamos. This was later confirmed when French Egyptologists Lecoq and Chevrier were working in Karnak and made an important discovery of 2 stela fragments. The smallest of them was found in 1932, and in 1935, the larger fragment appeared. Thus, it emerged that the Carnarvon tablet text was copied from Kamosi's stelas. These newer texts were published in 1939. Other discoveries. More recently, some other inscriptions of Kamos were found. Only 2 stelae of Kamos were known until recently. One of them was also copied to a Dynasty 18. Writing table Carnarvon tablet Redford 1997. Nose 68 to 69. In 2000 for a fragmented inscription with the 2 ladies' name of Kamos was found in Karnak and labeled the 3rd stela of Kamos. Van Sicklen 2010. And in 2008 a further inscription of Kamos was found in Armand. There's 2009.